and Taylor, thank you all for coming today. We've got a really great session planned with our Hear from an Expert series. We're talking to Heath Russell from ThousandEyes, which is part of Cisco. So before we kick over to Heath, we'll just slide through a few housekeepings. So today we'll just cover off very quickly why Murdoch Webster, why ThousandEyes. As I said, any questions, please pop them in the chat and Paul will shout them out throughout. And then obviously next steps, we've got a lot of fun things planned with ThousandEyes and Cisco going into 2024. So we'll update you on that as well. Now, the most important part, pop your email address in the chat, please, so that our beautiful Paul from marketing can send you out your Uber Eats voucher. So jump on and share that to us. That would be great. Now, I'll hand over to Chris Mearns, who is the Murdoch Webster founder and CTO. And next slide, please. Yep, there we go. And Chris will say a few words. Thanks, Chris.
Good day, everyone. Thanks for joining. Great to see so many people here. I think this is probably going to be one of the best Hear from an Expert we've done, considering how we see the world going and where people work from. Why Murdoch Webster? Why ThousandEyes? So let's talk about ThousandEyes first up. We're always on the lookout for technologies and applications that are going to make life easier for our customers and make things better. So when you have a look at applications, years ago, we had them stuck in the data center and the network was internal to our network and everyone was working from an office. And then, you fast forward to people using cloud and SaaS and accessing over the internet. The internet has become essentially the backbone of your network, right? So how do we monitor something that we have no control over that's provided to us, especially when we're using things like Teams calling, WebEx, all the SaaS applications you can think of under the sun. So this is where the ThousandEyes product comes into it, and it gives you that full visibility of the path to the application. And what we try to do at Murdoch Webster is we try and, like I say, look for these technologies that are going to fix problems in the real world. So think of the path, and Heath will go into this in a lot more detail. It is Hear from an Expert, so I will be quick because I'm not the expert. But if you have an issue with Teams calling and you want to be able to fix it quickly, you jump onto ThousandEyes and you can see exactly where the issue is. So these are the kind of things we try and bring to our customers and try and solve problems for them and get good business outcomes for them. So that's what we're all about. But like I said, this is a Hear from an Expert. Heath on the call is most definitely the expert. So I'm going to quickly handball over to him, and I'll just sit in the background and listen. If you've got any questions, like we say, chuck them in the chat, and we'll get to answering them. But yeah, over to you, Heath.
For those of you who don't know me, my name's Heath Russell. I'm a technical solutions architect for the channel in ThousandEyes. So I've been with ThousandEyes for roughly 2 years, but before that, I've been using the product in Anger since 2016 and have a wealth of knowledge around, kind of SaaS performance, monitoring in general, and observability as we're starting to call it now. So many of you are probably thinking in your head, right, what actually is ThousandEyes, right? You've heard all this stuff around, it's monitoring, it's this, it's that. Well, it's probably just easier if I show you what it actually does, right? So if we look at it, ThousandEyes is actually robotics, okay? So it creates a digital twin of your workflow and then basically helps you log in to a platform, clicks on a certain thing that you're going to want to go into. It waits for a certain thing to show up on the page, right? And then finishes the transaction. And if you look on the right, it's actually taken screenshots of the platform as it goes through each one of those individual steps. Now, think about this in your own workplace. If you were logging into SharePoint, or if you're in the education space, Technology One, or a whole bunch of other kind of SaaS applications that you're trying to monitor, we basically measure that workflow as we go through a particular system. So what this allows us to do is assure digital experiences over any network, right? So we have these agents that run that digital workflow and they repeat that every few minutes. Now, if you think about your own business, right, and I'll say the tagline, right, optimal digital experiences are not optional. Trust me, your users will complain if they're not already complaining about some other issue. But if we look at the right-hand side of this graph, it says accelerate business agility and innovation. We all want to be there, right? we all want to get to that stage where we've got time to be able to do those kind of things. But the problem is we're stuck over here on the left where we're ensuring, business continuity. We're giving a good user, working towards building a good user experience. And then we kind of work up to, okay, we've implemented some new digital system and we want to protect and ensure that that digital system is working the way that it should, right? So that's kind of like a really key thing that we want to be able to do. Now, don't take it from me what the ThousandEyes people say about ThousandEyes. The one on the left here is actually one of my really good friends and someone that I used to work for with in the customer side in a very large mining organization. He says literally it's like a microscope. You can put it on anything, a transaction, an application, a network, and it actually tells you what's going on. So many kind of tools out there will tell you that there's a problem, and it's cool to know that there's a problem. But where ThousandEyes is different is we tell you where the problem is, okay? So why do we exist? Well, if you look at the kind of the old world, and maybe this is your world now, you have branch offices connecting into a data center. And then in that data center, you'll have a whole bunch of applications that run in that data center, right? It might be, some on-prem exchange. I don't know if they still make that. But, there's like Siebel and like HR systems and whatever, some CRM system that you may have. And then we used legacy tools to be able to, monitor those systems like SNMP, Packet Capture, and NetFlow. And that's cool when you control the whole sphere because that you can actually do that. But we live in a world that looks like this now, right? We still have a data center. Yeah, we still have branches connecting into a WAN, but all the applications we actually connect to are in Azure. They're in AWS. There's SaaS platforms like Salesforce, SuccessFactors, Workday, Office 365. The list goes on and on with applications that we're connecting to. Now, that means we're now beholden to our internet service provider, the quality of their DNS, the quality of the infrastructure as a service, their security infrastructure, and all those other things. We're now beholden to, right, to make sure that we have those things working. So if we look at visibility, as a whole, essentially we've got, the tools that we have in our toolkit on the left, and then we have the challenges that we have, in the current landscape. Now, if we look at the things that we can throw at a problem for SaaS visibility and stuff that's outside of our control, we can do things called run. Now, what that means is that we insert like a little bit of JavaScript into our website, and it tells you what the users do. Now, that's cool when it's just your website or it's something that you fully manage. But if it's Office 365 or any other kind of, SaaS platform, it's a shared medium. They're not going to allow us to enter that JavaScript, right? So we can scrub that one out. Now, NetFlow, flow data, it's really cool for networks you manage. But as soon as we get on the internet, we can't capture NetFlow on the internet, right? It's a public space, so we can scrub that one out. Now, packet captures are kind of like the creme de la creme of the way that you would capture data. Now, packet captures are really good when we have, for unencrypted data. But nowadays, when we're using stuff like Office 365, SAP, any of these other SaaS, even WebEx or Zoom, these are all encrypted calls or encrypted data, and we can't actually open that packet capture anymore. We don't have the ability to do that. Okay, so we can scrub that one out. SNMP tells us the health of our network devices, but again, it's only network devices I control. So that one's no good either. Streaming metrics like Splunk, again, really good for stuff I control, but again, I can't integrate myself into those third parties. That leaves us with the last one, which is called synthetics. That's what ThousandEyes does. So we have what's called an agent. That agent then runs a transaction or runs a test, and then we gather information, through the stack of data as we capture the information. So how do we do the actual, give you this kind of rich data? We run tests that collect metrics, okay? We run these from cloud agents, enterprise agents, or endpoints, okay? And I'll demo those all today. Those metrics include stuff about the entire stack. So we start at the very bottom, which is your routing and your internet and your networking. Then we move up into metrics about loss latency and jitter about that network. Then we get into the user experience, which is the handshake between you and the server, and then finally into the user experience of how long does it take me to do that work that I'm doing? Now, the cool part about this is we have this in layers and time slices. So you're able to go, okay, well, at the same time that my performance degraded in my application, there's an issue on the network, and we can correlate those two things together. Now, the endpoint agent is also something that you can put on a laptop, and also now Desk Pro devices, so Cisco video conference devices. We're able to integrate that into our platform, and then you can run the agent on there as well. Now, I don't say this just because I work with ThousandEyes, but we do have the best data, right? It's accurate, it's precise, it's exact and thorough, and we'll get into a little bit of that today. So when we're working with third parties, right, and you guys would have experienced this, I'm sure, is when I've got a problem with, say, Office 365 or SAP, you ring them up and they say, yeah, well, no one else is having a problem, right? It's just you. It's got to be your network, or it's got to be your internet service provider, or it's got to be something to do with your environment, because none of my other users are complaining, right? None of the other businesses who subscribe to my service are complaining. Meanwhile, they all are, but you've got no evidence to basically say something's wrong or what's going on. So we need to kind of change our way that we deal with this in our mentality, right? So when it's our stuff, and this is how we always worked before, we find and fix the problem, right? We work with other people in our team, and let's just say we had a server issue or an application issue. Maybe it was a problem with our mail service. We'd walk up to the Exchange guy, tap him on the shoulder. He'd blame the network, and we'd have an argument for probably an hour. The server would get rebooted and would get magically fixed, right? Not that that's ever happened before. However, that we can't do that with Office 365, or we can't do that with SAP in the cloud, right? The only way that we can do that is by what's called evidence and escalate. So when we pinpoint where the problem is, we create what's called a ThousandEyes snapshot, or a share link, and then we escalate that up to the third party and then show them where the problem is. Now, that might be a cloud provider, that might be your internet service provider, it might be a WAN, it might be someone in your LAN, in your own team as well. And as soon as we can pinpoint where that problem is, we then use that as a lever to go and escalate that with them. So how does the platform actually work? Well, basically we configure alerts, and we have these out of the box. We then pinpoint you to our dashboard or our report where you can actually see where the problem is. And then we create share links, which are read-only views of our platform that we can share with people within our own environment, people within your ISP if the problem's there, or even share that with your cloud provider. Now, one of the really interesting and unique things about ThousandEyes is that 23 out of the top 25 SaaS companies in the world all use our platform, okay? They're using it to verify that their user experience is working the way that it should. So the way that our platform works is the robot does this kind of, robotic thing that will basically look at the user performance. So again, log into an application, load the front page of an application, maybe it makes a synthetic voice call, maybe even just does a basic network test. But as we do that, we also run at the same time a test that gathers the health of the network. And we do it in a really unique way. So the way that we do it is we do an end-to-end test to measure the quality of the voice, or whatever the services that are, whatever it is that we're testing. We then do a network test, which gathers the loss, latency, and jitter during that particular time. Then what we also do is we run what's called a path visualization. Now, it does look like traceroute, but it's actually a proprietary thing that we have, and it's called the patent's called merging diamonds, if you want to look it up. But essentially what we do is we send a TCP connection, or if it's agent to agent, a UDP connection from the source to the destination. And we actually hack the time to live as it traverses across the network. And then we are actually able to gather really detailed information of like the loss or the latency and the jitter and the quality of service tag from each individual layer 3 hop as it traverses across the network. And as we do that, we then calculate where we're getting really high response time or high latency in a particular link, and we highlight that red for you. Then if we're getting forwarding loss, right, or loss that's happening beyond that node, we then highlight exactly where that is as a red dot. So it's really easy for you to be able to pinpoint exactly where that problem is. Then, let's just say it is a problem with your ISP. We flick that share link off to our ISP and we go, you know what, guys, there's an issue on this particular link. We know that there's a way around it. Maybe you can reroute our traffic around the issue to get our issue, to get us back online and get our business working again. Now, the other thing that I'll say is like, Aussie Broadband, Optus and Telstra and, TPG, they're all customers of ThousandEyes. So they actually know what a ThousandEyes share link looks like, and they're able to get the visibility and see what's going on. So in our suite or portfolio, there's kind of three main products. And I'm going to start with the one in the middle first. That's called an enterprise agent. Now, that enterprise agent basically is just like a little Docker or a virtual machine that can run on various devices. So I'm running one in my home right now. It's literally running on a Synology NAS sitting on my desktop. And it basically is running a little Docker container that runs that enterprise agent. But it can also run on Cisco switches, Meraki MX routers. Again, it's a Docker. It runs actually on Juniper switches as a Docker container as well. It can run as a Linux package. It runs on Hyper-V and VMware as well. So basically all those ways of running the product, you're able to do that very easily. And again, very lightweight, 2 CPUs, 2 gig RAM, very, very basic. And finally, or the other side of it is we have what's called cloud agents. So if we've got an issue where we've got a cloud delivered service, right? And we're thinking about, okay, well, I've got an office in Brisbane. I've also got, I want to be able to see what it's like on the internet in Brisbane to verify, is this a problem within my office or is this a problem on, the internet at large? What I'm able to do is actually fire up that same workflow on a cloud agent that's sitting out there on the internet through the platform, and then also run it on an enterprise agent inside my WAN, and then compare the two and go, you know what, the cloud agent's way faster. Maybe there's less security or there's some other thing that's going on inside the office. And again, if a service provider comes to you and says it's something to do with your network, well, you can go, well, here's the same workflow running on the internet in the same city, and it's not having any issue. Right? It's got nothing to do with my network, or it is having the issue and it's running. It's got nothing to do with my network. I'm able to verify where that problem is and then quickly isolate and take that kind of it's me out of the picture straight away. And lastly, and we're going to get into a really kind of like interesting and funny story about the endpoint agent. The endpoint agent is really awesome, where you've got a really kind of someone who's complaining a lot around the performance of an application. We can put the agent on their laptop, and then basically from there, you're going to be able to really quickly, easily see what Wi-Fi they're connecting to, understand the health of their home network environment, and get visibility onto exactly how their environment is, and when they're accessing work applications, the user experience that they're experiencing. So very, very powerful. Now, from a cloud agent perspective, everywhere where you see a dot, we've actually got either one or more agents. There's actually even more now from this picture. So I think we're over 220 cities now globally where we're running cloud agents. So if you've got that workflow and you really want to see what it looks like to open this application in America or South America, Africa, or whatever, wherever you've got users, you're able to get that visibility. Now, just quickly before I get into the demo, I really do want to show the user experiences or the things that we're able to do. So we've kind of break it down into 3 platforms, right? We've got customer digital experience. So think about this as your customers accessing your services. What's it like for them to experience your website? What's it like to experience the DNS service? And if you've got a public-facing service that you're doing, you pretty much have to deal with the content delivery network, and they always break, right? I'm telling you right now, they always have issues, and that's why some people are always having problems because they're not mapping to the right content delivery network, or there's some issue there. So again, you can keep those guys honest. If you're getting DDoSed, again, you're able to see what's going on there. This is more of a really big case for banks where they have like things like Prolexic or other DDoS mitigation providers there. They also have lots of issues. And then BGP routing or BGP hijacks, we're able to capture that information. Now, modern WAN, this is kind of really interesting because if you're doing an SD-WAN migration or, you've got an interesting kind of network visibility, we're able to give you the overlay and underlay of your SD-WAN, right? So to see the underlying path and then the tunnel, and then compare and find out where the loss is happening on a particular path. We can help you with security use cases too, right? So if people are talking to you around going, okay, I've got a direct internet access at my branch. People are complaining about the firewall. I'm able to pinpoint exactly, where the delay is coming from in that firewall and see if there is actually an issue or not. Finally, if I've got network devices that I want to understand, I'm getting the health of that data, and then the endpoints, right? So we can see what's going on. And then finally, for your employee digital experience, we measure to Azure, to AWS, any SaaS provider. And again, if you're using platforms like Zoom, we help you gather experience or user experience around what that looks like. So without further ado, I'll jump into the demo. I guess any questions at this point in time? I'll take that as a no, so that's cool.
No questions in the chat either, mate, so crack on. All
right, cool, no worries. So I guess what I'll do is I'll start from the endpoint agent. So this is a true story. I was working with a very large engineering firm, okay? Now, if you've ever worked in an engineering firm, there's two things that I can tell you, right? Engineers will tell you that they're the smartest person in the room, right? Especially civil engineers. And then the second thing I'll tell you is that civil engineers will tell you that they're the smartest person in the room again and again, over and over. Now, basically, there was this civil engineer who was always complaining about working from home. And he was saying that he was having massive issues accessing the SharePoint, for this organization and their Salesforce. So in this case, they use Salesforce as their ticketing kind of engine. And then they use, SharePoint as their kind of file repository for all their CAD drawings and stuff. And anyway, this was getting all the way up to the board. So there was massive issues where people were complaining, heads were going to roll in IT. This guy was going crazy, right? So what the IT team, they rang me and said, hey, can we get some endpoint agents on trial? We just want to see what's going on and just verify what's going on with this particular user because, man, he's causing us massive issues and everyone's really angry. So we said, cool, man, no worries. Let's just chuck it on his service, on his laptop, and we'll put in some work websites which are around the Microsoft, the Google Suite, and Salesforce, and we'll see what the guy's doing at home. So again, what we're able to do is get this path visualization of the applications on the right and then the user's network on the left. Now, what was really crazy about this person was that, okay, he went home and he started getting like really high packet loss, right, in his home. And we're like, what's going on here? His latency was crazy. It was like 300 milliseconds. What's going on? Jitter, again, really bad. Connection failures, none at this point in time. He'd visited 11 pages, right? So he was working, but it was really slow. And we're like, what the hell's going on? Well, this guy lived 4 doors down from McDonald's, right? So instead of him getting his own internet connection, he actually used a McDonald's free Wi-Fi and was complaining about the user experience being 4 houses away from McDonald's, right? Users are crazy, right? So the thing is that this got all the way to the board. Everyone was complaining. Everyone's going crazy. And this guy can't even buy his own home internet connection, right? So stuff like this does happen. And, watch out. So again, we're able to track exactly what's going on. So, I mean, no wonder this guy's having a bad experience. He's getting 13% packet loss in his LAN before he even gets out to the internet. So of course he's going to have a bad day. But not only that, if we click on visited pages over here on the left, we can actually click in and see, okay, let's have a look at the user experience. So, funnily enough, some of the Office suite's actually working okay, but overall, this guy's having a bad experience. So he's in 67%. Now, I can see here that this guy's having a bad time. He's got 39% performance score and lots of issues. So, but then I can get into a little bit more detail, right? And go, okay, here's my angry engineer. He's running a MacBook Pro. He's able to, we can see his CPU, his memory, his IP address, the Wi-Fi signal strength that he's connecting to, the SSID, the physical mode, transmission rate, RSSI, noise, etc. We're able to capture all that kind of data around how that user's home environment is, and it's really good. And again, this will work in the office, at home, wherever the user is connecting in from, if you guys are using a VPN, we'll actually capture the VPN as another point in here that you're able to see the loss latency and jitter to the VPN. Because especially in global companies, we actually see quite a lot of people connecting to the wrong VPN concentrator node. They're connecting to Singapore instead of Sydney, or they're connecting to the US, right? So again, you're able to gather that kind of information really easy. We've got a path trace. We're able to see exactly what's going on. And again, you can see the super high latency that this guy's got on his network. And then, you've got the SharePoint page. And then finally, the waterfall, which goes into all the individual elements that are happening within the page. And then we give you the response time, the wait, the receive, the DNS resolution time of all those individual elements within the page. Now, if you're a network engineer, don't freak out. We're not asking you to be a server guy, but if you see a big line, right, something that's taking 5 seconds and 4.8 seconds of that is server wait time, that's probably not your problem. Right? And you sit down with your app guy and go, hey, this is what's going on. What do you think? And again, I'm doing this from the share link, right? So if you look at here, it's randomstring.share.thousandeyes.com. You can literally share that with whoever you're working with. They don't need a username and password. Whoever it is that you want to share this link with, you share them the link. They're able to view and see the visibility of all these elements for that particular snapshot in time. Okay. And you can make that die after a couple of weeks, or you can keep it forever, or whatever you want to do. You're able to capture these kind of events or snapshots and then see what's up. So really, really good and really, really powerful to be able to see what users are doing from home. And pre-COVID, this was kind of pretty small part of our business, but since COVID, it's become massive, where a lot of people are working from home. We're able to gather all this kind of information in a very detailed way, and then see what's going on. Now, probably one of the other ones that I really want to kind of show is, just going to move this Zoom thing around a bit. Just bear with me. All right, now, when you're using, collaboration platforms, again, this is another share link where basically I had an issue with my WebEx working from home. And what I'm able to do is basically go, okay, well, I've had some, a bad experience. So there's my mean opinion score of the WebEx session that I'd had. Now, at the time, I was using Singapore as my WebEx kind of node. And then I was getting like 13% packet loss. Discards. So discards are caused by jitter. So the more jitter I have, the more packets get thrown away. And then it basically becomes like loss, right? So it makes a really bad experience. I've got my latency and my jitter, which is the PDV there. Now, typically, this is where most applications stop. So they tell you you've had a problem. I know that there was a network problem that happened during the call, okay? Again, really good information, but it doesn't tell me the causality or where the problem is. Now, with ThousandEyes, what I can do is click on this, the layers here. And again, it's just a share link. I've got a voice call. That's the quality of the voice call that I've had. Now, at the same slice of time, I can then click on the path visualization, and it's going to show me, all the way from my location, which is my home right now, and then through to the end, which is, in this case, the WebEx in Singapore. Now, what I'm able to do is kind of hover over each one of the layer 3 addresses or the path that's happening between my network. And again, I've got no integration whatsoever with any of the service providers that are part of this. Literally, all I've done is set up a test to go from the source to the destination. And I've said, make a phone call every 5 minutes, and then, give me the result. Now, the cool thing is I'm able to track the quality of service. I'm able to see the IP addresses as they traverse over the internet. I'm able to see all the individual, IP addresses. And in this case, I'm using Superloop at home. And as I traverse through the network, I'm still able to track the quality of service as it traverses through the network. Now, in this case, the service provider has chosen to use an MPLS tunnel between Brisbane and Sydney. And we can see that there's issues there with high latency or congestion between Brisbane and Sydney. So, that's obviously not good. But again, they're still maintaining my quality of service as I traverse through the network. As I get into Perth, right? And then interestingly, as it goes from Perth to Singapore, they actually change my quality of service. So again, with no integration, I'm able to track the quality of service as it traverses through the network. Again, go through all the individual service providers. Now it's gone to Equinix. Equinix is like a big kind of how would you call it, like a hosting provider where you're able to come in and change between different service providers. Then we get into the WebEx cloud, and then finally, where's my actual packet loss happening? It's happening inside WebEx, right? So in this case, it's probably caused by my quality of service being changed or stripped up here. And then finally, I'm actually getting packet loss inside the WebEx cloud, and I'm able to pinpoint where that issue is. Now, you'll notice that this packet loss happened and continued for a little while longer. There was actually a faulty switch with a faulty SFP in the data center. They literally took that switch out and the issue went away. So again, a really good way for me to be able to escalate the issue and show where there's a particular problem with an application, out of my control. And I share that with the third party, and they're able to pinpoint and see exactly what I'm seeing and troubleshoot the issue the same as I'm troubleshooting with an evidence-based approach where we can escalate that issue up. Any questions on that? No, I'll take that as a no. Okay, so I'm now going to get into a bit more of a more interesting use case, right? So I'm working with, I was working with 7 Plus, like earlier in the year. Now, last year this was, and basically they came to me and said, hey, we've got really weird issues where we've built a transaction, right? We've got an issue where users are having problems when they connect to our service. Now, some users have no problems, and sometimes it's really slow, but some other users don't complain at all and they have no problems. And we can't really understand why some people have issues and why some people don't. Now you can see here we've got our transaction time, which is how long it takes for us to do the steps. Then we've got our login, our browse the shows, and then we sign out. So I can select any agent. And again, what we've done is we've spread them around different capital cities. So I can say, okay, here's what it looks like from Brisbane. So we can see all those individual steps as they go from Brisbane. And then if we want to see what it's like from Melbourne, from a random location, or if we want to go, you know what, show me what it looks like on the I think it's Office. Show me what it looks like in Telstra. I'm able to see all the individual carriers and how they're treating the network and the speed that they're getting from those particular services, right? Really, really good for me to be able to see what's going on, gain an understanding from different service providers, and see, are some people having a different experience than others? Now, you can't really see it here, but if I click into the table, we can actually see the transaction time. So that transaction time is to log in, browse, wait for a particular show to show, and then quickly, and then finally sign out of the application. And then we repeat that every few minutes. Now, if I actually rank the service providers and the different locations that we're viewing from, a picture starts to emerge, right? So we've got in Melbourne on Optus, it's actually the fastest that it can be. If we look at Telstra in Melbourne, we notice that there's quite a significant time in different, right? So we've got a huge performance delta between users in Optus and users in Telstra. Again, in Sydney, Optus is actually slightly faster again, not that much different to Telstra, but yeah, it's still having different performance from different locations, right? So again, we're able to see the difference in time for those locations. Now, again, it's cool because we go, okay, cool, we've now seen that there's a problem, but that doesn't tell me where the problem is. So again, what I can do is go to a deeper level. And then what we're able to do is go, okay, well, now we're going to do a HTTP server handshake. So that means I'm talking back and to and from the server. And then I'm looking at the availability. Now, no matter where I'm coming from, it's pretty available. There's, maybe one like little issue there, but it's pretty much available all the time. Where I start to get a better picture is I go, show me the response time, or how long does it take me to do a handshake back and forth to that server. Now, if I look at that from Optus, my time is actually much faster, right? So if I look at a normal time, it's pretty much sitting at 50 milliseconds, right, for that handshake. DNS is sitting at like 25 milliseconds, which is what I'd expect. you got your connect, your SSL handshake, and your wait time. Again, this is really good for understanding if there's a firewall problem, because usually that SSL time will blow right out if there's a firewall issue. Now, again, if I want to compare that same thing with Telstra, firstly, thing you'll notice is that the response time is now like way higher, 350 milliseconds. But of that 350 milliseconds, the actual issue here is DNS resolution. Right? The DNS is taking up the most of the time here. And again, if we get into, go back to our transaction, we start to see that in the waterfall. So if I go back to my transaction, again, we're looking at it from a Telstra perspective, I can then get into the nitty gritty of what's actually happening and pull it apart and say, okay, what's actually going on here? So there's a whole bunch of data in here. That's why it's sort of taking a little while to load. There's a lot of, kind of pictures and stuff in this website. But if we hover down and we start to look at, all the individual elements that are happening within the page, and we go, okay, if we break it down, DNS is like always the standout problem. It's taking almost a second for DNS to resolve. So again, this is not really a network problem, but it's looking like a network problem because DNS is, having major issues, right? Again, I'm able to pinpoint, work from a transaction, so an actual user journey, back to, performance indicators, which is the response time, break that down into, again, like more detailed things around DNS, SSL, all these other parts to be able to really get an in-depth view of how things are working in the way that they should work. So very, very detailed platform from that perspective. We can really deeply understand, all the elements, the networking perspective. Again, we understand the path that it's taking through the cloud from the, in this case, we're doing it from cloud agents. So agents spread in different carriers on different locations, all the way through to the SaaS application. And again, we break it down into different nodes. So, here you've got CloudFront is the service provider, and that is located in Amazon in Sydney. Okay, and we're able to break down, the journey and who's connecting to what in what elements, and then all the individual service providers that are making up that service chain for me to be able to get into the service. So super detailed and super interesting from that perspective. I guess from that kind of really concludes my demo. I mean, I can go into probably more detail and more depth, but probably for the time today, I think that would probably be okay. But what I do want to know is there any questions, and can I take you through anything from there?
There are a few questions in the chat. Heath, give me 1 second and I'll just scroll back up the top here.
I'll jump in as well. I've got a few here. Wes has got a few questions. Wes, if you'd like to unmute yourself and have a chat as well, feel free to. Otherwise, we'll just work through your queries. So Heath, the first question is, what gateway permissions, credentials are required to enable ThousandEyes to collect data?
Yeah, too easy. So essentially, there's a list of firewall rules, and again, that's in I think it's docs.thousandeyes.com. Again, if you're interested, I can send me a query directly. I'll send you the link to the actual firewall rules specifically that are required, because the information is actually stored in the cloud. Now, the key bit of information to understand is that we do not do packet capture. We don't do net flows, so we don't capture actual user data unless we're installing the endpoint agent. Okay, so that's a really important thing to understand. Secondly, again, we've got a very specific list of firewall rules that you need to open up to be able to get the visibility.
Yeah, that was just my question, really, because when we've integrated with other platform management services or whatever, we've obviously built a tight environment, SIEM and SOC and everything, and then we've had to relax those rules or make it exceptions and exemptions, and it kind of goes against the grain of what you're trying to do a little bit. So
So the other one that you should check out is our trust portal. So just go to thousandeyes.com/trust. It shows you like all the security compliance we have. So there's certainly a lot that we go through to make sure that our platform is ultra secure. But yeah, we have all that information as well.
Also, some other questions. Are there any limitations on collecting metrics from guest users, external parties who have access to our SharePoint EDC?
No. So basically, the way that it works is from an endpoint agent is that you would install the agent on the client machine, and then from there, what we do is, well, what the administrator needs to do is basically specify what's called interesting websites. Interesting websites are websites that you guys would define. So that might be star.sharepoint.com, or it might be star.salesforce.com, or whatever subdomain or application it is that you guys want to monitor. We will only gather information when the user visits that website. So if they're measuring, if we don't have news.com.au in there, it wouldn't be it wouldn't gather the information.
So if a item showed in some of your demonstrations, there's an issue here.
Yeah.
And you say the good thing about ThousandEyes is that you can not only know there's a problem, but you can know where the problem is.
Yes.
But you won't know where the problem is unless it's been pre-listed as something to be on your watch list.
To monitor, correct.
Yeah.
And typically what we do, right, is you know what your websites are, right? So you would go, you know what, it's going to be anything.salesforce.
Well, I know what websites they're supposed to be using, but I don't know what websites they're actually.
Yeah, so that goes to the other point, right? If they're having issues with another service that's not a work application, do you care? And the answer is probably no. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So again, and it's good for privacy, right? Because you want to say to the user, look, man, or look, guys, what we're doing is we're monitoring the websites that are work websites. If you go to a personal website, we don't care, right? We're not gathering information. We don't know.
Yeah, because a lot of the apps they use as well, they might be via their phone, BYOD, which is a shared personal device. Still might be using a SaaS platform with the registered IP, so it's on the watch list. Are you just identifying the IP, or you're identifying the device as well? Yeah.
So basically, right now we support OS X and Windows. Linux is coming very soon from a desktop perspective, and mobile phones are not supported yet, but it is coming soon. We just acquired a company called Sam Knows. I don't know if you've heard of it, but basically that's where we'll be integrating their mobile application into the ThousandEyes portal.
Okay, we've got a few more questions that we'll get through quickly because we want to let everyone get back to their day. Shashi, if you'd like to jump online and have a chat as well, feel free to, but I'll ask a question for you. How different is this tool from CA Wiley tool? Have you heard of it?
Yeah, I have. So what's funny is CA Wiley has half their staff have joined ThousandEyes, and they do overlap quite a bit. But basically, I don't really like to comment much about competitors, but yeah, pretty much the entire staff is now working for ThousandEyes. So the head of all the sales engineers is from CA Wiley. My boss in America is from CA Wiley, and yeah, CA Wiley is more of an APM product, more than a network visibility product. So, and we're kind of not even either of those. We're called digital experience management, and we actually defined a new quadrant in Gartner, and that's why Cisco bought us.
Okay, great. Paul Keeley asks, can you provide an overview of how the product is licensed?
Yeah, good question. So with the endpoint agent, it's really simple. One agent is one agent. So you buy them in blocks of 100. So if you want to get 100 agents, you would basically buy 100 agents. However, if you have more than 100, what you're able to do is turn them on and off. So you might have a group of, say, executives who are always on, and then you have some ones where you've installed the agent, but you haven't got them activated. You're able to do that. So you're able to get 100 agents and do from that perspective. So that's how that's done. Now, from an enterprise agent perspective, which gives you kind of much more, I want to say, granular, baseline, detailed information. The way that works is the agents are free, but you pay per test. So the more tests that you run, the more data you capture, the more that it costs. Now, if that sounds confusing, it probably is when you first have a look at it. But again, what I'd like to do is, if you do have, a really kind of more detailed question around what use case you have, what kind of licensing it's going to require, I can sit down with you, run you through what's called our calculator. We basically work out how many what's called units you require, and then from there, that then evaluates to what the cost will be.
Okay, great. One final question from Cameron. Cameron, once again, if you'd like to unmute and ask more questions, you can, but I'll pose this for you. Can ThousandEyes run on Cisco SD-WAN C-Edge, and does it monitor BFD tunnels?
It does, absolutely. So, so basically, if we actually have like way more detailed integration with Cisco SD-WAN, like Viptela, and the tunnels, what we do is we give you the overlay, which is the the tunnel, and then we give you the underlay at the same time, right? And then we have what's called predictive networks. So if you're running Cisco Viptela or SD-WAN with Advantage licensing, it's actually incorporated into your licensing. And we actually give you, because ThousandEyes is kind of like the public, I want to say that the internet, knowledge base for the world. We take 14 billion measurements of the internet every day. The way that we do that gives us a huge data lake. We then feed that into our AI engine, and then from there we can actually tell you or predict performance of applications before there's an issue. And to be honest, it's actually scarily accurate. And it'll tell you that, hey, Telstra at this time of day is actually faster. Optus at this time of day is actually faster. Move Office 365 from tunnel 1 to tunnel 3, and then so you'll get better, 12 or 15% better performance at a given time. Now, at this point in time, it's just recommendations. We will move to automatic, traffic steering in the future. But realistically, that's when we actually interviewed the users that we were working with, to be honest, most of the time we're ahead of their change control anyway. It was the human process that sort of slowed things down, and people aren't really ready for AI to run their network yet.
Awesome. Well, if that's the end of everyone's Q&A, I think Chris is busy sending out Uber Eats vouchers for those that have messaged me asking where your lunch voucher is. It should be in your inbox now, if not after.
It's coming very soon.
The Prezzo. And if you'd like a copy of the recording, we can certainly send that out. So make sure you ping me on email or give me a call. And happy to do some one-on-ones with Heath as well. So if you are interested in more details, please let me know, and I can organise a private conversation with Heath later this month or early in the new year. So thank you for joining.
And just one final thing, Leanne. If any of you are coming to Cisco Live, I am running a hands-on lab. So I'd love to have you along. It's called Network Nirvana Mastering SaaS Performance. So if you are coming to Cisco Live, I'd love to have you at my lab, and we can go really deep. So it'll be really cool.
Awesome. I will be there. So I will see you next week.
Thanks,
guys. Thanks for your time today. We really appreciate it. Have a great afternoon. Thanks for joining.
Thank you very much, everyone.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks. Bye-bye.